Thanks, Val. Okay, we'll call to order the Board of Zoning Appeals for Sylvania Township, our regular meeting, and we'll do a roll call, please.
Mr. Boland?
Here.
Mr. Schlachter?
Here.
Mr. Hellberg?
Here.
Mr. Miller?
Here.
Mrs. C. Here.
Okay. Do we have February 9th minutes? Everybody seen those? Has anybody seen those?
We didn't have a meeting in February. No.
Oh, that's why. Okay, right, there we go. Yeah, that was it. It was just the election officers and discussions. Okay. Yes, do we have a motion to approve the minutes of our last meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Schlachter?
Yes.
Mr. Boland?
Yes.
Mr. Hellberg?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mrs. C. Yes.
Okay. Now, we would have old business here typically, but I think due to the nature of the topic, and we have some folks here in attendance, I think we're going to flip ourselves and take number 5 first under new business. And one of the first things we'll do is ask anybody who may be testifying today on the matter coming up, I'm going to ask you to raise your right hand. And do you swear that the testimony you're about to give is the truth to the best of your knowledge?
I do.
Thank you. Okay. So now we have, under new business, we have a variance request from the required 30-foot front yard setback to a 20-foot front yard setback provided for lots 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 in Oak Creek, North Plat 1, located at 4605 King Road. And Bill, can we please have the staff report?
Sure. On December 18th, 2013, the Lucas County Plan Commission approved the preliminary drawing for a new residential subdivision to be known as Oak Creek North. This proposed subdivision has 14 lots on 9.22 acres. The site comprises 3 parcels currently occupied by Larberg Landscape and Nursery on King Road. Developed residential subdivisions bound the site on all sides. The applicant is seeking a variance to Section 803 of the Sylvania Township Zoning Resolution, requiring a minimum front setback of 30 feet within an R1 zone district for lots 1 through 6 of the proposed Oak Creek North residential subdivision. The variance request is for 10 feet in order to construct a single-family dwellings with a 20-foot front setback. Currently, there are wetlands on the site where lots 1, 2, and 3 are to be sited. Section 404 of the Clean Water Act, 1972, allows the applicant by permit to fill in a maximum of 1/2 acre of wetland. It is the preservation of the remaining wetland that generates this variance request. For the applicant to develop the lots yet maintain the wetlands, the dwellings on lots 1, 2, and 3 must be constructed closer to the right-of-way of the Oak Creek North access street. The requested variance for lots 4, 5, and 6 is to offset the lots with those opposite and provide a more balanced look to the subdivision. Sylvania Township zoning staff recommends approval of the requested variance. The applicant will be mitigating a substantial area and the maximum allowed of wetland on the subject property. However, the remaining wetland presents an impediment to the practical development of this site. The granting of this variance would create no substantial detriment to the adjoining properties or alter the character of the residential neighborhood. All other development standards of Section 803 would be adhered and the intent of the zoning resolution unaltered.
Okay. So far, I don't know if any of the board members have any questions yet. And if none there are yet, then I'm going to ask if there's someone here to speak on behalf of this matter. I ask you to go to the podium and sign in.
Hi, I'm Greg Feller with Feller Finch & Associates, here representing the applicant.
So I think everybody has this drawing in their packet, and I brought one here, just to kind of talk about. So, as Darrell said, we're developing this residential property. The preliminary drawing was approved, I think in 2013. And under the original approved preliminary, we had the road coming in, we kind of did a curvature to it, so it's curved up here and kind of curved down just to give it a little feel.
Excuse me, Greg. You wanna- It's not even working. Just an offer.
That's okay. And subsequent to that, we discovered as we were going through the development of property that there are wetlands on site. So then we had to figure out what to do, how to work around the wetlands. So what we decided to do was, so there's this whole area here, the shaded area plus this dashed area, that's all the wetlands area, plus there's a linear soil here that is also these wetlands. So under a nationwide permit through the Corps, we're allowed to fill a half an acre. So what we did was we decided to in order to make it work, we had to bring everything south to get the lot to make the houses fit. So what we do, we're going to fill in this shaded area of wetlands. So that represents our half of an acre that we're going to fill. We straightened out the road to pull it south, so we could pull these houses south. We're going to leave this dash area, that's the wetlands that's going to remain undisturbed. And then, so the reason we're asking for this variance is so that we can pull the houses a little bit closer to the road, because we can't pull the road any further south because we're already kind of limited on depth of these lots. So what we want to do is we're asking for the variance so that we can get an additional 10 feet, pull these houses 10 feet closer to the road. We left it at 20 foot because that still allows cars to park in the driveways and not block the sidewalks. So that's the reason that we went to 20 foot and not anything less than that. And then what this also does is, since we're leaving this as undisturbed wetlands, it pulls everything south and provides a little more buffering to these lots to the north. So I think it enhances their view also. So what this allows us to do is it just gives us a little bit of a backyard area for those houses to utilize before they hit the wetlands. So there's about 43 feet from the back of the house building area to where this wetland starts. Again, we need about 10 feet of that for grading, to grade everything properly. That'll allow those houses to have some usable backyard while maintaining the wetlands that are there undisturbed. So that's really the reason for the request. I'd be happy to answer any questions if you guys have any questions.
So 4, 5, and 6, which are not in wetlands, but you're doing that so for the symmetry?
Yeah, correct. So as you pull in the neighborhood, it looks uniform. So if you have these houses, 1, 2, 3, a little bit closer to the road, the 4, 5, and 6, it'll kind of look awkward. So in order to kind of alleviate that, we're asking for the variance on 4, 5, and 6 also, just to give it a more uniform look. As we get past these lots, then the lots back here will go back to the standard 30-foot setback.
What's the price of the subdivision going to be in the houses?
I don't have to answer that.
I start around 450 and go up from there.
I think very similar to Oak Creek.
So what happens to the ditch in lot 14 and 13?
It's going to remain. So what we've done was, the reason we eliminated wetlands here, and we pushed this house down so this house can fit on the lot. So that's not a ditch, it's
Right.
a depression.
It's a depression.
Yeah. That will just remain on those lots. Again, just like this area, will remain undisturbed.
And you show on lot 7, the house in front of the building line? That's
Just a mistake.
Yeah.
They did pull back.
because that one would set back to its front
Right, yeah.
corner behind
7
that
and
line.
7 and 14 will go back to the standard
Okay.
30-foot. Correct.
Any other questions or comments?
Is there a tower on that property now? No?
I know, obviously, it was.
There used to be one, yes, there
Yeah.
used to be one.
There's one on 14. Is it? I know there's some foundations on site, because it is, the Warburg property, there's a few. I don't know, I think is there a tower?
I think this is the big concrete base.
It's the base, yeah, but the tower itself, I don't think
Tower
is there.
going.
And obviously that'll get cleaned up when we develop it.
Any other questions? Is there anybody here, anybody else who would like to speak on behalf of this matter or against? No?
shot.
That's fine. I'm gonna have to ask you to sign
Sorry,
in.
guys, I'm just gonna ask.
Can we ask you to sign in, please, real quick? Yeah, you're right.
My name's Dave Files. I live directly behind proposed lot number 3. And I've been talking to fellas for a while about this project. And I hate to be one of these guys. There's just some trees going here we've been talking about keeping. And we knew there was wetlands on the property. I said, how are we going to resolve all this stuff? And they've been talking about leaving like a 50-foot buffer of trees right here. So if you go from this dotted line to the new property line, that's 50 feet right there. Well, now that there's wetlands on there, and we're gonna clear these, I was wondering if there's any way from this dark line back to the property line, we can call it just a natural area. Because if they leave the 50 foot that they promised, and also leave the wetlands, that leaves this little triangle here, this little spot here, this little spot there, that you can go clear trees and put grass in. But to get there through the wetlands, you're gonna have to bring a lawnmower through, brush and everything to get back there. So I thought it'd be nice just to dedicate it from here back, dedicated to natural reserve area. Don't call it wetlands, because I understand it can be harder than done to sell the lots. Just call it a natural reserve area, like it is in the back of Oak Creek. If you go in the back of Oak Creek, the back of this neighborhood, way back here, there's a big thing in the air, there's a big area behind all the lots. They just call it natural reserve and no one touches it.
So the area that is not shaded, that is wetlands, that's going to remain. And it's natural. Okay, so am I missing, isn't that going to give you some buffer then?
Well, yeah, you're gonna have, this is a wetlands area, and then this is the 50 feet that they said that they would leave me treed area, which leaves this little teeny grass area. To make it easy, you just call it from here to the line, the natural reserve area, untouched. Did you catch that? That way it blocks the 50 feet, and then they're really not gonna use that grass area. I mean, who's gonna do that?
What does Mr. Wamsher think? Is that right, too?
I'll just sign it. I think that will probably end up being the end result.
Just state your name for the record.
Ryan Wamsher, Millstream Development Company.
Thank you.
I think what Dave's after is what will be the end result, but if you look at this first drawing that's in here, top drawing, we had back here, residential time used to run all the way down to the and as we started looking at it and said, hey, we're gonna take out all these trees in everybody's backyard just to put in a stupid detention pond. Didn't make any sense. What we did is we slid the detention pond back there on the side. And I hear what he's saying about this, he's talking about this space from here to here. And not that I wouldn't still look at it, but first off the top of my head is what I think is, I don't want to put so much on these lots that somebody doesn't want. All of a sudden they can't touch their lot from here all the way back. And you're going to be at, I don't even know what the exact depth of that, but you're going to be buying a 262 foot deep lot. You're not allowed to touch the rear 130 feet. It just doesn't sound so good from a sales point. I don't want to put myself in the corner. However, I
Mr.
think
Fox is a salesman.
Windswept Farms is the same way. You go into Windswept Farms and you buy these giant 5-acre lots and you can build in a half acre and the rest of it's all toasted into floodplain land.
it doesn't make a lot of sense to I live here to come back here and clear out this little area with grass.
Totally agree. So let's call it a natural area. I totally agree that
No,
no
I
one would do
think
that.
you're going to get what you want, but I hate to put those lines, those marks all over the papers when I'm trying to sell. So that's not.
And that's why I didn't want to call it wetlands. I just wanted to call it a natural reserve. A natural reserve is nice. People think they have a park. That's not going to fight for it. It's just something I like to see. I mean, once again, if they're going to give us the 50-foot tree area.
We are going to do the.
Is that pretty thick in there, that 50 foot?
It is. We're going to have a lot of street orders with attention on it, so that's why.
Well, it's pretty thick in there.
It is.
Yeah.
It's,
Especially in the summertime.
You can't see it through it in the summer?
not in summer.
Not three,
Absolutely.
We try to, we try to accommodate developers, and you're a developer.
Absolutely.
We try to accommodate, so that we don't want to he would go in there and not be able to sell his lots either.
Well, I totally agree.
And I hear what you're saying, you live behind there, but, if there's 50 foot of trees in there,
They're getting 50 feet more than what they were getting out of the improvement we just done in planning commission, because we moved that detention.
I think you've been very generous already.
I agree 100%. I agree 100%. So I'm just wanting to see if you know, entertain the idea of calling it a natural reserve area.
Okay.
That's all.
Thank you.
Thanks,
No, thank you. Appreciate it. Anyone else here to speak on behalf of this matter? You guys are good? Okay. Again, do we prefer to have? Yeah. Okay, so what we're going to do, we're going to adjourn briefly off the record, and we're going to go discuss this, and then we'll come back and vote. Thanks.
Hey Val, how come we do this behind closed doors? Why don't we discuss? Is that just how we do it? I thought it was-
Yeah. They've been doing it like that for a while now.
Oh, have they?
Mm-hmm. It's really, really, it's been past few years. Mm-hmm.
It's been a while since I've got various in Spanish County.
Yeah,
It makes more sense.
yeah.
Talk about what you really want to talk about.
Huh?
Talk about what you really want to talk about.
Yeah, right.
Get it really.
Say what you really want to say.
Actually get it figured out.
Yeah. I'm sure it'll work out fine for everyone. When are you guys going to start building? Do you know?
I'd like to think, start the project, but start building houses by the end of the year, before the snow flies would be nice.
Yeah.
Well, it's a couple of months later. We still got, there's still some paperwork from Mr. Feller said that needs to be done. How much do you guys say that?
I want to get through this to make sure that we got variance, then we'll come up with paperwork. I don't know if this is, I'm not sure, Joe, I'm not sure what the process is. As long as you do what you're saying you're gonna do it.
Item number 4 under old business. Discussions of placement of an expiration period for approved variances and approved conditional uses not acted upon within a set period of time. Yeah, just give them 1 second to clear out. You guys can do the rest out there, we would appreciate it.
Thanks, guys, I appreciate it.
No problem, thanks, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we had, at our last meeting, we did at least have a chance to broach the subject. Variances and conditional uses currently in the township have no expiration period. And I guess we all left that pondering this and getting some more information from Daryl. And that we're being asked today to look at that and see whether we would support a recommendation to put limits on 1, conditional uses, and 2, variances. And I guess at this point, at least I'd like to open that up for discussion. And if you've got your packets, Daryl did a nice job of giving us some examples of various townships and some counties within the state that have some limitations. So, anybody, any comments or thoughts?
I agree that we should put those on there, just, how long we want to do it. I think it's important that we do it, when we see now that those things hang out there for 4, 5, 6 years, things change. So I think there should be a limit. As far as timeframe, a year maybe, I don't know.
Personally, I just think a year is too short. I don't know. I mean, if you look at the, the varying economic times and stuff, I mean, sometimes, it might be a little harder.
2 years.
Yeah, I think I'd be fine with 2 years.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I just want to clarify that this is for a variance or a conditional use that is not enacted upon within whatever
Right.
set period of time from approval by the BZA.
Right, so in other words, they received approval and they did nothing, they didn't get their zoning certificate permits, they didn't start anything. So I'm hearing, what I hear, I agree with too, the couple in terms of wording that, the one in, under conditional use, Union Township, I liked, said a conditional use permit shall be deemed to authorize only one particular conditional use, and said permit shall automatically expire if such conditionally permitted use has not been instituted or utilized within 1 year of the date, this is conditional uses, on which the permit was issued, or for any reason, such use shall cease for more than 2 years, and I kind of like that too. So that's, once they've gone and done something, if it becomes abandoned, they've left it, somebody can't come back years later and piggyback on that. And I thought that was also, it kind of honed in on a little even more. And then I think for the variance, the one was, let me see if I have that one real quick. Well, what the one on Liberty Township there, the last one, except taking it a little bit more language. What I liked about the Liberty Township, it says, this is on the variances on the next page. For variances, the applicant shall have 1 year from the date of approval to receive an approved zoning certificate approval. And then I would add in the language from the one above that would say zoning certificate approval or building permit, and the erection or alteration of the building is started. And then it also, what I liked about it, it allows for you can come in and request an additional 6 months. So you would have 18 months.
Yeah, so what's the process to come in and request for an extension? Would that be just something to the zoning office? It wouldn't come before?
I wouldn't think so.
No, it'd be before the BZA.
Oh, it would come back in, okay.
It would be essentially the same as when they come in the first place for a variance, only not as.
So it's kind of like our process last month's meeting, where we actually, they just brought it, and we just had to note it, that it was, that they were using a conditional use.
Now we're allowing to go.
Similar, yes.
So on those two, I mean, if we like the longer period, I don't mind, you can take what I just, at least that language, and make it 2 years, and make the one 18 months with a 6-month extension period, something like that.
I don't know if you guys are open, but it looks like Mr. Feller's got something to say, and actually, these are people that it affects.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was going to ask you real quick.
Yeah. Greg Feller, Feller Finch Associates.
Sure.
Just wanted to, obviously saw this on the agenda, so I just wanted to listen in. I completely agree with the time frame. I mean, I think it's a good idea. My only comment would be I really think it needs to be longer, certainly longer than 1 year. I'm thinking more of like 3, 4, 5 years. And 5 years might be too long. But the reason for that is, a lot of times when developers, want to do a project and they might need a variance, what they'll do is they'll come in and, a lot of times put the property under option, get whatever they need, the variance, conditional uses, whatever it is, make sure all that's in place before they lock down the property. So that process alone could take 3, 4 months. Then they'll go lock down the property. That process, sometimes could take up to a year to work out the contract, and, so by the time you get through all that, you could be at a year and 3, 4 months. Then you got to go through the design and approval process for the project, which could be another 6 months. You could easily be at 2 years from the time you get your conditional use to the time you actually start construction of the project, just depending on how the time frames work on everything, So I think a year is really, really short. 2 years, would be better. I personally would like to see 3 years, just to give, if something happens and something goes sideways on a project and, they need to figure some things out or something needs to happen, it gives that flexibility rather than, 1 year is just way too short, I think. So that's my only comment. I would just like to see the time frame, like maybe 3 years. But I completely understand with, having the time frame. I think it's a good idea.
Nice.
So.
That's a good
Do you
comment.
see a difference between time frame for a variance versus a conditional use?
Not really, because Again, with both of them, I think you have the same scenario where, a developer's going to get all that stuff in place before they lock down the land, then buy the property. So I kind of view them as the same thing as far as the time frame goes. And like I say, if it's 3 years and you haven't started the project in 3 years, then, it probably could go away.
You had when we asked this question last time, you had a thought in your mind, a proposed difference between a variance and a conditional use as far as the time frame. What was that?
Right, I felt that maybe the variance could be a longer time frame because of the development process, the permitting process, it'd be a lot more drawn out. I guess I'm thinking of the quintessential conditional use, which is generally a home occupation. Somebody wants to cut hair or financial planning or something out of their home, something like that. But, Greg did bring up a good point, because, conditional use could be anything. I mean, well, like we had the Fleegers case a few months back, and so it could be something like that, and there could be a process as far as acquiring the property and whatnot. I guess my recommendation would probably be on each of them 2 years, and then come back for 1-year extensions.
I agree with that.
And then I guess we could look at, do we want to limit how many extensions, or just have unlimited extensions? You could just, excuse me, keep coming back every year and getting a 1-year extension, or just have a one-shot deal.
I think our ultimate goal, though, was we didn't want to have, because actually we did talk about Fleegers, the conditional use that we put on there, that, 10 years down the road,
Right.
The environment has drastically changed around that area.
Right.
So I think we all agree that there needs to be a limit, but at the same time, I don't, think I don't want to make it difficult for, for
Agreed.
your department to constantly, be looking up these things. That's why I think the conditional uses and the variances should be at least the same, just for consistency and process.
It would make things easier, sure.
Because how are you guys going to go by it, like enforcing all of this? How are you going to know if someone's stopped their usage? How are you guys going to enforce? Are you going to send notices?
Well, I think as far as like the conditional use, like going back to Fleegers again as an example, so that deal fell through, but that conditional use is still hanging out there. So let's say 5-10 years from now, somebody comes along and decides, I'm going to open up a landscape business here because there's the variance attached to the property. So they would be coming into our office, and now we can't go back in time, so that one is going to be out there forever. But if a similar case came along, then at least we would have that deadline.
So it wouldn't be retroactive?
No, I checked with our legal counsel on that. No, definitely not any variances or conditional uses from tonight backwards that have been approved they're attached to the property indefinitely.
I'd also like to say, the process being simple, within your department, and actually I think the process, you don't want to have a convoluted process that, people have to answer questions, it should be very simple.
Right.
I like the, the follow 2 years and extension. But personally, I don't know, what's the difference if we do 2 or 3? I think Mr. Fowler mentioned something about 3 years.
Yeah.
So why don't we do 3 years in extension? Is the shorter time frame beneficial in some way?
Well, I think, again, somebody goes in and relies, not knowing this, and it's so far remotely down the way, and then somebody comes back, 5 years down the line. And, I'm not sure how else you would have notice of what variances have been granted. So within, I think, a reasonable amount of time, if there's no activity sitting for like 4 years, I think that's a long time. At least if you do the 2, and you have a right to come in and extend, people are notified, and so somebody never knew about it, now you get a chance to come in and hear about it, and they get to come in and have an update. If they come in and say, we're working on it, and they've done nothing, it's like, okay, I like the idea of giving them a couple years and then asking them to come back in here for an extension. But you're saying the extension for 3, I don't know, that seems to be a long time. I'd almost rather have them do a series of them. to be monotonous, but rather have them keep coming back for a little bit, not limiting them to one extension period. I don't mind if they have a couple, but I just want to see them doing something. And I also want to be able to make sure neighbors are notified, because they go and they buy next door and they see a zoning, they're not going to know about this. That's what I'm trying to protect. It's not stopping the process at all. It's just being fair to the guy. Because I do that a lot. I'll say to somebody, when you bought, didn't you know, you saw it was zoned, you saw it was, well, yeah, then they have notice, but they don't really get notice of this. And that's all I'm, so if it's so far down the line, how is somebody supposed to have known that 10 years ago there was a variance given? So, I'm in support of the 2 years and then maybe a series of extensions if we want to give them.
Is there a limit of extensions, or?
I guess that's,
I don't think so, because if you come back every year, that gives the board an opportunity again to look at it. And
well, that's true.
If conditions change and for some reason it's not appropriate anymore, then the board can say, you know what, things have changed, it's not appropriate, we're not going to grant it.
Right.
So it still gives you guys the
Good
control.
point. If it's annual, I don't know why you would limit it. That's a very good, I really don't know why you would limit it. As long as they come in, yeah. So.
I would consider a 3-year initial term just because, again, I'm thinking from a new project. I understand what Daryl's saying about existing homeowner that wants to do something. That doesn't take that long, but from a new project, new construction, it could take 2 or 3 years from the time you get your preliminary approvals and whatever until the time you actually start construction. I've seen deals take a long time,
So is it, it's, I guess, safe to say a huge majority of conditional uses are existing. That's why you're doing a conditional use. That's something that's already existing.
Generally. And I guess something else we could look at, depending how extensive we want to make this, but we could have a separate standard for residential and another standard for commercial/industrial. Yeah.
Right now,
That's
we
an
have
option.
nothing, so.
Exactly.
Well, either overcomplicated or
Yeah.
I think you ought to keep it simple.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, I would prefer that, but yeah, I'm just throwing that out there as an option.
What do you got?
Just a personal experience for you to think about how it might affect us is, we came in front of this board, it's probably been 5 or 6 years ago, is my guess. We came in with two pieces of property on Holt and 1 piece of property on Brent Road for a variance to where you're going to measure the building line. Instead of measuring at the street, measuring it at where the actual building line is, in order for us to do what we did, the Sweetwater Farms over there off of Holt Road. Great concept, great idea, we're still sticking with it, but with what happened with the world and the market and everything, I've sold 3 lots out of, there's 16, there's 9 at Hammock, and however many are across the street, out of probably 35 or 40 lots that are going to be bigger lots. I'd hate to have to come back here every, you know what I mean? That's just one particular example for me, like how I'd have to come back here every year to get my variance on a piece of property. And maybe that's the game. If that's the game, that would be the game. But once more people get moving in around, it's going to be tougher and tougher for me to get my variances. And that's one of the advantages you have of getting them early without fighting all the people, and them knowing what's going to be there, I guess.
So in that example, what
Yeah.
part of the project hadn't begun?
Well, it's 3 different pieces, so
So you've
really,
got-
only my Sweetwater really is only really started.
The other 2 had...
Hammock Creek hasn't even commenced. There's a sign out there, but it hasn't commenced, but it's got the same variance that goes along with it. And I realize this wouldn't be retroactive, so it wouldn't hurt that stuff, but I'm just saying that's a personal example from me, how that would affect us. The other thing I would say from personal example is if you get a variance and it's contested, fill this room and people aren't liking it, as a developer, we usually act a little bit faster on that. You know what I mean? You actually do move that forward quicker, and you're not going to want to hem-haw around. You're going to want to get that thing done because it was contested. You don't want to have to come back for any kind of time thing. So that's the other thing that maybe moves it along a little bit quicker when it's contested. And when it's not contested, I guess it could be, you could come back every year and do it. But where they're putting that retirement center out there on Mitchaw, they're obviously selling some ground now. They go putting a bunch of houses along my 40 acres, and all of a sudden I got to come in here against, 25 people who don't want me to have a big house or for whatever reason, so that's just a personal example of how we got that variance a long time ago, and it sits there on a blank 40-acre piece of property that, hey, are they ever going to do anything? Yeah, we will as soon as we're able, one of those kind of things. So.
And I guess the flip of that is, depending, again, within a reasonable time, you have to come back in 2 years later.
And if you
that question gets posed out there, what's going on with that? Is that ever going to...
That's right.
So everybody...
Yep.
And I think it, again, to some extent, it helps you too, that to be able to say, yeah, we have an update, they just got an extension, we know what's going on, it's the same, they're just waiting it out.
I was much more anxious to get up here whenever I saw it was going to be 1 year than I am 2 years, so. But that
Yeah,
helps.
no, that makes sense. Thank you, that's good input. Any other thoughts or discussion? I mean, I think we're narrowing in on some thoughts.
We don't have to make a decision tonight on this. We could just keep carrying this over
I think we should.
until we're comfortable.
Throw a motion up there and put a 3-year time and then I'll be done. You should got something.
You know,
You got nothing now.
Right.
well,
Well, there really would be no motion. I was just looking for, get everybody on the same page. Once we agree on something, then it'll go through the amendment process, going to the Lucas County Plan Commission and the Zoning Commission and the trustees. But, I mean, obviously, I wanted the input from the BZA, so, I mean, whenever the BZA feels comfortable with something, then I can write it up, I can email it out to you guys, and if everybody says, okay, fine, then we can begin that process, or we can just keep carrying it over until
no, I mean,
until we come up with something.
I agree with, I mean, I think, at least if you want to narrow in something, I would like to, and whether it's final today, but at least as opposed to just, there's only so much to think about. I think we're down, I think, I'm hearing a consensus that we should have something, it's more of a time. I mean, I'll throw something out, and then obviously everybody can tweak it, and then maybe we'll get, I think after hearing all this, and it was very helpful, I think a 2-year initial period, and then the right to extend it for 2-year periods, without limiting how many times it can. I just think those are realistic, and I think you're protecting the people that are out there, and that's a starting
So
point.
instead of, 2 years and then a 2-year extension.
Right.
Yeah.
And then we've got, and then what we don't have to give, I mean, some of the language that's from one of the others, we don't have to reinvent the wheel. I think it's pretty simple and clean on some of the language that we could pull out of. So that's, if we agree on that, we could maybe get that tweaked. Darryl, the next meeting, we could have the language come back and then set off.
Why are you so obligated to do the extension? We can come in and get it whenever you want, you know what I mean? Why are you obligated? Are you going to be an easy extension, just the paperwork, or we have to come back in front of the board?
No, I think in terms of the process, you would come back from the board. To some extent, you are coming back. I mean, some of the things I think you pointed out cut both ways. A lot of them I think will cut in your favor, that the board formally is getting updated, and yeah, they're going to go again. And I guess if, on the other hand, if you've sat long enough and things around you have changed, that maybe, yeah, I mean, quite honestly, yeah. So those are just, that's my thoughts. So I think that I really like the extension idea. That if,
2-year extension.
I like the 2-year extension, it's good.
okay. Any other comments, questions, or, so maybe we can, I think, a time period, and then I'll be happy. And anybody, if we can between now and then, any language, but I'll try to at least shoot out the one that I like, and then we can all tweak it, and then we can come back with a recommendation next time. Okay?
Sounds
All right.
good.
Any other business? I think we've done old and new. And if not, I have a motion for adjournment.
Mr. Bowen?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Schlachter?
Yes.
Mr. Halbert?
Yes.
Mrs. Sink?
Yes.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Good. Yeah, see, what you said back there is what I was saying. Let's have